Welcome to Woo New, a show that explores healing and the expansion of our consciousness.
Where we explore all kinds of different energy modalities, therapies, and ideas that bring us closer to our collective liberation.
I'm Ellen, and I'm a journey work guide.
I'm Sam, and I am an integrative energy therapist.
And together, we are the co-creators of We Are All Daughters,
a quantum healing space dedicated to helping us reconnect to ourselves, our bodies, each other, and the universe. We are so honored today to be talking with TJ Moss, who's an artist, songwriter, and healing enthusiast. We were introduced to TJ through Jamie Harb, actually, who is also an energy healer that we've done a couple of episodes with. And so we're just so thrilled to be able to talk to you, TJ. Thank you so much for giving us your time. We haven't had the opportunity before to really open up and explore men's healing retreats and the work that you've been really diving into. So thank you for being here and for sharing your experiences with us.
It's my absolute pleasure. This is my first podcast, so let's go. Listen to them every day. Never been on one. So this is it's a pleasure. And thank you for bringing me in with such a sweet meditation and spirit. And this whole thing is just got good vibes written all over it. So I'm totally ready to get deep.
Love
Yay.
it.
That's how we like to go. So.
Yeah. A great place to start, I think, actually would be just if you could share with us sort of what brought you to exploring men's retreats and what were your experiences like, and just, yeah.
Sure. Yeah. My journey began several years ago. I'd say probably right around 2016. And a buddy of mine turned me on to this work, and it was kind of it didn't really delve down too far into one or the other thing, you know. It just was kind of this holistic. Let's get 4 men together on. Well, it was probably 6 men actually at the time, and on a Zoom call, he had a program. We did it weekly, and he did a lot of the work that I really went further into, but he kind of started this whole process that was just super transformational for me, because at the time I just really needed, I couldn't put my finger on what I needed, you know. I think I needed a lot of things. But what I really needed was just a focus and a sense of belonging to some extent, and brotherhood, and I would say accountability. And that was probably the most powerful of all those things was the accountability that I was that was sort of that I chose to take on and to participate in as well. And the very first moments in that whole process, it was the first, episode, or the first time we came together. And he sort of took me down this all of us into this visualization, and it was this hero's journey type of thing. And at the very end, you know, he's like, well, you're gonna have to we came to this crossing, you know, in our minds, this water, and we had to jump across. And in order to do that, we had to leave something behind. And I loved this visualization. I was like, well, and I knew what I was leaving behind, because when I came in there, there was a nagging, and for me at the time, like, it was, my vice was marijuana, and it was like my use of that had become a crutch, it's the kind of thing that, I mean, I'm a musician, so music and weed, it's like peanut butter and jelly.
Oh yeah. That's my
So
husband for sure.
okay. So I'm sure that there's plenty listening to this that know what I'm talking about. But at the time, it wasn't like I wasn't in control of that relationship. And I knew that. And so he said, "All right." And he called on me first. He said, "TJ, what are you leaving behind?" And I said, "I'm going to stop smoking weed." And he goes, "Great. For how long?" And I was like, "For a year?" And he was like, "Great, awesome, go." Like, okay. And so that now I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm not smoking weed for a year. Like, I hadn't thought about this. I just like reacted. It was just all happened very quickly. And then, like I, I soon then realized that, like, okay, this is like so real. And it became, then this language started to form around this, this sort of, I guess it's its own healing modality, this men's work thing. And I mean, it's like work is like we're all doing work. It's men, women, whatever, and anything in between. We're all doing work, but um, there's a sort of a language that was presented to me that I really started to take on, and it was, "Are you in integrity?" It was a question. And so then our check-in became, here's how I'm feeling, mind, body, soul. I am in integrity. Like that is, and so that became, like my battle cry for that year is like, I'm going to do this to remain in integrity with myself and my higher self that I didn't even plan. It just came through me. Like I knew what I needed. And so that that year began as that moment, which turned into this extremely transformational year in my life, where I had like all these things like from my old life that I was trying to sort of let go of and like transition into a new life, from the car that I was driving to the house the apartment that I rented. That whole thing melted away, and in that year went in a new direction, in the direction I was going, and everything sort of just like was sort of wind in my sail, just pushing me forward. And it wasn't all, rainbows and all that stuff. It was, there were dark days. um and days when I had my doubts, and days when I was like, oh man, you know what, this is really uncomfortable. You know what I could do to make it less uncomfortable? But luckily, my my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, um she encouraged me, and like she's like, you're not gonna feel great about, you had told me how much you care about this, and you're not gonna want to be at the end of this journey having not done it. And so I went to her a few times when I knew I really needed like a kick in the pants to just like help to remind me. But I got there, and it wasn't it was more of like, okay, I exercised my willpower, and I did need to do that. But it really was more about, what I realized, it was really more about all the all the things that that I had made room for, because I had made a shift. And so all of that time and energy that like I had, that I I perhaps had been squandering, were redirected. And I still have that relationship. There was no magic pill that I took, and now all of a sudden I'm healed of all my vices and my humanness. But I was given, if nothing else, a a sort of a blueprint for an obvious transformation. And like it just took me on a path. And so that was just the beginning. And so that was again my first move into this work. And at the time I was really dealing with a lot of lack. I had like, okay, so I'm a musician and I've been sort of that cliche starving artist for 20 plus years,
Mm.
always in bands, and so like never really had enough, and that was okay with me because I was living my dream and I was living my best life out here. And it took me from New York to California, but there was still this lack. There was a lack mentality. And even getting into that program, I was like, oh my God, it's $1,000. I don't know how I'll be able to do, all this stuff,
Totally.
like,
Yeah,
and,
that's
and
a world we're familiar with.
oh my God, right? And so powerful, to even just like make that commitment at that time, knowing that, okay, like I'll pay it off in monthly installments, or, whatever it was. I just knew that I needed it. And then, and so there were so many levels of that and layers to that. But after that, I had kind of so I had stayed in touch with those guys somewhat, I mean, and it's hard, you're in this, you get into this like container, and then once the container is sort of like released, everybody kind of just goes back into their little world, their universe.
Were you
Um,
were you guys meeting regularly, or was it just that one
it was
time?
once a week for about
Okay.
7 weeks, I want to say.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and it was like an hour,
Hmm.
and during that time we had our, like, check-ins, and then material was presented. It was a lot of yoga. It was a lot of like daily practice. It was a lot of that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, building good habits, being a householder, in that way, was a lot of what that work was. And like, and so, as like I said, it didn't really like go into one thing. It sort of just presented the whole picture. And
Mm-hmm.
so that, that was a huge beginning for me, because like it was such a transformational year. And then, fast forward, and I've in and out of my isms, and my like moments of passion, and my failings, and all of that, from here until the end of time. And that brought me to uh another teacher who is of the same sort of, those two men are actually friends, and I know both of them, through sort of music, and just this whole, um, there's kind of there's a spiritual like community out here in San Diego, and sort of like Joshua Tree, and there were these music festivals and yoga festivals called the Bhakti and Shakti Fest. And I sort of met some of these guys in that scene. And it led me to my teacher, who is now who now is like, I'll go into like my second layer of all of this work, which is much more recent. And it was actually much more focused on one particular book, and that book is King, Warrior, Magician, Lover.
Mm.
And so this is more focused on the masculine archetypes, these four particular archetypes. And when we're speaking about masculine, it's not male female.
Mhm.
It's energy, so the
Mhm.
masculine, feminine energy. And so, and we all have all of these energies, um, and they're most of the time, at least in my particular case, one of those is either in excess or in a deficit. And then whenever those, those energies are sort of out of alignment, certain behaviors, certain tendencies show up in your life. And these so I'll kind of explain these four. And this book is it's really cool. It's really interesting. It's kind of psychotherapy, not psychotherapy, but it's kind of clinical meets spiritual. And so I like the marriage between those two things.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah, because you kind of need them both. It's like
Totally. Yes.
yeah. I want like I myself am I'm a dreamer. My head is all over the place. I'm a songwriter, so creative, but like I love hearing pulling it in to and there's other writers that that have influenced me in that way. But so this book particularly was what my next chapter was about. And same sort of setup, men in a group setting with a Zoom, and like I go into this, and here we are on a podcast. I go into this whole thing with like knowing that I'm a person to person kind of person. I don't love doing Zoom meetings, and I find that like, and I'm a live musician, like I play, music for people. And so that connection is such a part of my experience, like experiencing people and witnessing what they're experiencing is such a part of my process. And so I went into this one a little skeptical and just like, but knowing that like, okay, I've come a long way since those early days of that first program, and I wanted to go deeper, and I also wanted to support my friend who I think is doing really good work, and his name's Adam Tudor, and I believe his brand is Mentor for the Masculine, and so he's doing he's on his own path. He's a musician as well that's like gone on a spiritual journey, and gone to India and Alaska, and he's doing it. He's doing the work, And so I also wanted to be with him, be a part of what he's doing. And so I signed up for this course, and so we delved into this book. And the thing about these archetypes is, so like the king, really what we're striving for king energy, because a king is, a king in balance, right? Is fair, powerful, listens, is compassionate, but firm, and still must rule his kingdom, right? And so all of these things we're striving for is that king energy, and that to be in balance, and to be the king of our own sovereignty, our own domain, and but a king that with too much of that king is a tyrant, and can really mess some stuff up. And we see that a lot in this world. There's a lot of king energy out there that has turned to tyrant, and I won't name any names, but I can say that very safely there's plenty of examples of that in the world. A king that it is in deficit is a coward, and I can certainly look at myself in the mirror and say that I've allowed myself to be stepped on and sort of like, held down or not listened to, and so much of that is what we're ultimately seeking is to be the king of ourselves and our lives. And so it kind of all starts there. The warrior is more of that passion, the fighter, that says, hey, no, you're not going to talk to me like that. and that says, it's like the warrior really comes to the defense of the king. And so we know what that energy out of whack can do, like a warrior that is just like unchecked can be really destructive. And so like as we continue to learn about all of these archetypes, and um there's so much more subtlety that comes into this. I'm just sort of like painting a very, very basic picture. But then we move to the magician, which is sort of that intuitive part of yourself that sees the unseen.
Mhm.
And then the lover is obviously the empath, and the one that really feels the feels. And so I myself have been like on this pendulum swinging back and forth between like like I began this when I realized what all this was. I sort of was this lover, sort of out of balance, like lover magician type, because I have this, I'm a songwriter, and like this like, and I've always been a lover and an empath. Like before I knew what an empath was, I often thought like, what is wrong with me? Why do I feel terrible? And then it turns out it wasn't mine, it wasn't my stuff that I was carrying around. And so I sort of like shifted very, like almost like intentionally away from that, and sort of really started to nurture the warrior, and the king energy, and probably pulled a little too far, like trying to, and lost some of that other stuff, trying to overcompensate. So really there's such a balance, we're just kind of like swinging back and forth between all these things. But recognizing it, that's what it is. It's like,
Yeah.
to me, it was like sort of, I finally have this frame of reference of like, oh, that's what's showing up. Like, and it gives it a like sort of much more visible, like, indicator, of what's happening energetically.
Yeah, it's so interesting as you're talking about this stuff because, these archetypes are a really interesting way of just sort of looking at that masculine energy and how it can manifest, and how this program gave you the tools to notice and acknowledge where you are, and then decide what is in integrity with you, and then adjust it accordingly. And then I like how you also brought up the point that it took a really long time, and there's this pendulum swinging, because Ellen and I talk about always how it's like you're never totally in equilibrium, right? There's
Mhm.
always going to be a shift in one direction or the other. You're always going to be in like this slight state of flux, but it is a journey. It's like you're never going to just have it figured out right away.
Right.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because in that moment of homeostasis, it's on the way to the other side. Like,
Yeah.
there's just a
Exactly.
blink in time. No, absolutely. And I guess that's part of like, I think one of the most powerful things that I have experienced in all of this is really just acknowledging that, like, how what's so powerful. And I guess this will tie a lot into eventually like more of this, of the work that I do as as a singer, and a sort of a cultivator of people's voice, because to speak up is such a powerful thing. And it's I spent most of my life the nice guy.
Mhm.
And there's another book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, which is also very, very helpful for anybody suffering from nice guyness. Um, but there's this there's this there's a there's a type of personality, and I used to be that, where just being nice and agreeable was such a part of my identity
Mm.
that and I didn't realize how much pain it was causing and how much trauma I was actually like hanging on to, because instead of speaking up, like I was just collecting these not speaking up moments. And,
Mm.
like
Mhm.
that stuff was really affecting me. And I would walk away thinking about it, and like nobody else was. That was me that I was hanging on to all of that. And most people don't even realize they're doing it, that they're, sort of like dominating you in a conversation, or whatever. Maybe some people do, but for the most part, like it's just easy to just sort of be agreeable and just be nice, right?
Yeah, like
But
little
Right.
moment of self-sacrifice.
yeah, exactly. No, I don't want to rock the boat, but it's not good for anybody. It's not good for anybody, because not only are you going to take that, but like I think people truly want to be, they, especially people that are already inclined to being powerful
Mhm.
in that type of environment. Like it's good for them to be challenged. It's good for them to be talked to, not instead of just listened to all the time.
Yeah, I think in talking about those archetypes that you were just mentioning before, and just acknowledging the fact that there's a dance between all of them, right?
Mm.
And that we're never stationary. We're kind of like finding our middle ground between all of them or among all of them. If there's no tension, pushing back on somebody who's domineering or bullying or being that loud voice that completely obliterates everyone else's, then that person has no force to react upon,
Mm.
right? And so, how do they course correct or even, come to acknowledge or understand or realize that that's what they're doing if there
Right.
isn't
Hmm.
a tension pushing back on that?
Exactly.
Yeah, this reminds me so much, Al. This conversation just takes me so back to our corporate jobs in like agency life,
Oh,
Mm.
where there
totally.
was just so much ego and there was
Yeah.
so much, there were a lot of conversations where it was just like talking at versus
Mm.
talking to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I just think it's really inspiring that you've taken the time, TJ, to just really learn about these masculine archetypes and how to stay in integrity with yourself, but also come at this work from such a not only self empowered, but a very, at the same time, humbled and honest place
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
about what those experiences have been like, and just learning how to put language to them. Because I think even, when we were in that kind of, work environment, even, it was like we just didn't have the words to explain what was happening. I think most of the time I just thought I was crazy. Like I was like, am I the only person that like doesn't understand what's happening here?
Right.
But that happens also everywhere. It's
Yeah,
like not just in the corporate space. It's like it
right.
happens in the spiritual space too,
Mhm.
Oh
because
my
these are just
goodness.
natural energies that are
Yeah.
like that. And we're all trying to figure out our own way through them. And I think our trauma responses and living in our trauma responses like causes that sense of imbalance, right? But I'm so curious, like, especially as you're doing this work, because this is such powerful and such necessary work. I think particularly with men too. Like I think we're starting to see a lot of women who are really trying to, dive in deep and not necessarily understand themselves better, but just really like heal their trauma. But in the men's spaces, this is why I'm so glad that we're having this conversation because there's fewer and far between men that we have seen dive into this kind of work. And from my standpoint, and this is just my theory on it, I feel like the kinds of relationships that we've had with men in our lives, our fathers, our grandfathers, our uncles, because of what it was defined as to be a quote unquote man
Right.
back in generations before, none of this shit was modeled for us, you know,
Mm-hmm.
even for us women, right? Like none of this shit was modeled for us in a way that we can really, in a healthy, balanced way, move in our lives, like with all these different energies. And so we're learning it. I feel like this generation is really learning this kind of stuff right now. And like you, TJ, are like paving the way for,
Yeah.
you know, the future generations, particularly of men. But I'm really curious, like, how was it like to be in a group of men learning this kind of stuff?
Mm, very powerful, first of all. And what's funny is I, I, it's so funny because you say that, and it's so funny for me to even like in this moment, I'm on this podcast and I'm still going, well, even when um, you reached out to me to do this, my head, I'm going, oh, she should probably talk to my teacher. He's actually like doing this work, like even in these moments, I'm still trying to like, I'm still like talking myself out of it. Like, how can
Mm.
am I worthy to do this? Like, you
Yeah.
know,
Imposter syndrome is real.
yeah. And then I'm thinking, well, okay, this kind of I guess this kind of work is working because I'm like, who am I not to share my story at this point,
Right,
And
right.
so like I it's actually happening in real time because there's always going to be those moments like even when you're like handed an opportunity, you're like your worthiness is still going to be in question, or maybe you're
Mm.
not yours, but mine certainly tends to. And so thank you. Back to your question. To be in a group of men on a weekly basis was extremely not just powerful, but like I, it was like it was always this settling. You know,
Mm.
I would come back after a week of just normal life and I would even come in going, oh, here we go back to the Zoom room where I'm, like and he was in India at the time, and so internet was like super unpredictable, and the whole thing was very like it was just going on its own journey of just
Mm.
getting together, and but then it would happen, and my body just said, okay, you've arrived now, and there's something about the group that that and it's for all of time. Like, why do people get together to go to church, or why do people get together to sing to their god, or whatever it is? Like, when a group comes together, then powerful things can really occur. And so
Mm.
that was just happening, and it was just like it was something that I just felt, and I didn't couldn't describe it. I just could say that, oh, like, now I'm here and I feel different,
Mm.
and I can't point my finger on what is different about it, but um, but it's different, and it feels good, and it feels settling. And
Mm.
so, if anything, I would love to just sort of always have that every week, but I know it's not realistic in most people's lives, and you know, or at least it wasn't for that group of men. But
Mm.
I think it's such an important part of it, and like even now, I'm just like I'm kind of back, just kind of on my boat, just kind of bobbing around out there in the ocean. There's not as much of a something to come back to. But I will say this about this work, and this is why, like, when so much has shifted in my life, even in the past week,
Mm.
um, like so, that this work has really helped me um, to handle. But I guess I'll go back a little bit further. At the end of um, that particular program, we were invited to go on retreat with these men, and I just knew that like I just knew I wanted to go. It was going to be off grid in the mountains of Colorado, and like if there was a chance I could see these men, I wanted to take that chance. Um, And so I signed up and I'm like, I'm going. And this was back in August. And turns out none of my guys could even make it, but a new group of guys, including a guy that was friends of mine from San Diego, where I live, and he saw it on the algorithm. He saw it on Facebook, a post that I was tagged in that I didn't even post myself. It just like the algorithm did its thing, and he ends up going on this retreat with me, and that's a whole other story, like of how the depth of our relationship was just. I mean, our relationship deepened immensely from that experience. But I went, and all of this was just an incredible experience where Adam, our teacher, he took all of these archetypes from the book and he created activities around them. And so like we actually got to embody these practices with physical activities. And so like, with the warrior, we're like chopping wood, and we're screaming our intention out into the world, into the mountains, into the vastness, right? And so it was extremely powerful. But the most powerful experience that I had during that time was, and I'll keep it the container closed, because what was there stays there to some extent, but I think some of this needs to be shared because it was so powerful. He asked us to bring a picture of our father. And so my dad being a songwriter in the 1980s in Oklahoma, he released his four track cassette tape with a band named Rosewood, and his Stan Moss and Rosewood. And like I had this picture, I have this cassette tape, and I was like, I'm gonna take that cassette tape, and just because it's cool. My dad's like, in his 10-gallon cowboy hat and like sideburns and all that. And so I took that, and we were asked to partner up and think of an experience that like our father, that we had with our father. It's like, don't judge it. It's not good, not bad. Whatever comes to mind, just think of that experience. And so I did, and he's like, go, like, what were you smelling? What were you seeing? Like, really go there, and think about what you wanted your father to say to you in that experience, and what you wanted to say to your father. Like, what does that conversation look like? And write it down. And so then he said, okay, so look at your father's picture and talk to him. And then the partner that we had was basically taking on the character of our father and would read the lines back to us. And so we were getting to converse with our father. And I tell you what, like I kind of went into that whole retreat. I was a little skeptical, just because I was like, I'm a little disenfranchised with the world. I'm a little pissed off about what's going on. I'm a little bit this and that, and I'm like a little bit over it. But this experience just tore it all down, and like the floodgates opened up, and like I had the sort of like breakdown, the beautiful breakdown that I needed, that probably needed for about 20 years, like, to be honest.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it just opened up, and the gratitude I had for my father and the sacrifices he made so that I could do the thing that he wanted to do, and but in the 1980s in Oklahoma, you gotta eat, you gotta have a house, and you need all these things. And like, So
Exactly.
he went to work, and but he never discouraged me. He never said I couldn't have that, so you can't have that. Like, even energetically, he was
Mm,
always my number one fan and like supporter. And
Oh, that's really beautiful.
that gratitude just like it came through so deeply in that moment. And I was
mm,
just like crying and just thanking him. And like what was so crazy is the conversation, like what I had written down on the paper was turned into just a conversation starter, because then I'm just like crying and weeping and saying, and like the whole and having this whole conversation
mm,
with him. And it was just so extremely powerful. And so, like, just about a week and a half ago, my father passed away.
Oh, I'm
oh,
sorry.
wow.
And it not completely unexpected, but not certainly like a surprise. Like, he'd been in and out of the hospital, with some health problems, and like, diabetic, and just, he just had some things. And my dad was he had a lot of emotional trauma as well. And like, just he had depression for about 10 years. And turns out he had a low potassium count. Like, that's a big thing that
Mm,
I don't know how many people know about that. But like, if you're feeling depressed, like, check your potassium level, because like
Yeah.
that for him, like, we didn't know that, at back in the, what, mid to late 90s. Like, they're still figuring stuff like that out. But and so I flew home. This was he passed away on um October 6th, 2022. So just about a week and a half ago. And and I had, life planned, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm flying home to do all the things that you have to do. And I I'm just like extremely, I can't even explain how grateful I am for having that moment.
mm,
Um and I got to tell him about that. Um I did get to tell him about that moment and how it affected me. But the moment itself, meaning at the retreat, this
mm,
moment that I had with just experiencing the depth and the gratitude towards my father. And it really settled my relationship with him in such a
mm,
way that I couldn't have expected, even until he actually, passed away. And like, I was there, looking at my deceased father, and
mm,
like feeling such a sense of peace around my relationship with him, and how I was able to do all that, say all that before he passed. Which, and I understand that that's a luxury that not everybody has.
mm,
But
mm,
I know that like all of that came into my life when it did,
Mm.
because I needed that to handle what was to come.
mm,
And
Wow.
what was to
100%.
come was for me to go home and like shake 200 people's hands and like hug them and say, and hear everybody's testimony about how awesome he was, and how, you know and there's no way I could have like been emotionally prepared for that had I not been. And like, I think even there were even people that were just saying, like, like, how are you doing, and how are you able to handle this and all this stuff. And I'm just like, a couple of people I told the story, but for the most part, I just said I was, I wasn't ready, but I was prepared.
Mm,
And
mm,
there's a difference there too, like, understanding that, like, you're never going to be ready for certain things, but you can be prepared for them. And like,
mm,
and emotionally I was prepared. And so it really, like, this work in action in my life, I can't possibly think of a more powerful, like example of how that actually worked into my life. Um, and so it was just there, and I was able to step in and be that energy and be that calming presence that my family needed at that time.
Yeah,
That's so beautiful.
I know. I just, one thing that's been coming up for me over the last week, over and over and over again, has just been divine timing,
Hmm.
and just really
Yes.
seeing how all these little moments, these little events, some of them seemingly like completely throwaway and not,
Inconsequential.
completely
Yeah.
inconsequential, how they've come back and sort of like been the threads that were needed to have something
Yeah.
else happen, or and I just, so after hearing your story, like, wow, you were absolutely meant to be in that retreat. You were absolutely meant to, you know receive that love, that, and feel that gratitude for your dad. And God, just how beautiful that was to be able to also then see him off, like see him off from this body and this world in that same gratitude and peace. Like, I don't feel like there's any bigger gift
Mm.
Yes.
than that.
Mm.
My dad's death anniversary is coming up this Saturday, and it'll be 30 years this year. And
Wow.
I've just been like sort of waiting. So much of my path has been about the grief that I didn't allow myself to feel. And that was really kind of my portal to healing.
Mm.
And I think what you expressed in finally feeling that gratitude and recognizing his sacrifice, that's what I've been kind of experiencing over the last 4 years in these different moments. And it hits me so powerfully in the most unexpected times too. And I'm just here for all of it. I'm just like so grateful to be able to experience that and realize, like, even what you were talking about with like lack and my relationship to money. I literally just 2 weeks ago had a session with a transpersonal energy healer where I made the connection between my lack, my relationship with money, and my grief for my dad. And there was a connection there that needed to be released. It
Wow.
was so powerful. And I'm just like, I had no idea, this stuff gets so deep, and so it's so connected in so many different ways that are just, you just can't see it on the surface at all. And you have to really do this work in order to kind of dive in there and find those threads and like really,
Yeah.
you know,
And honor the journey and the time too that it takes to get there.
yeah, yeah,
Like, to your point earlier, TJ, it's like not every day is going to be sunshine and roses. Like,
Right.
doing
right.
this work means you feel those challenges and those energies even deeper. And so, like, really allowing yourself to acknowledge them and move through them and experience them rather than stuff them down or ignore them.
Yeah, and it allowed me to really just enjoy the outpouring of like um positivity. Like, my dad was just a really, and him at home was different than him out there in the world, because he didn't carry his depression out in the world. Like, that was something he kind of kept at home. And so like I have such a different perspective, and mine's even different than my sister, who was 8 years younger than me, who like had her own version of it. But to celebrate a life, and like to truly celebrate it, and to truly like get to like hear all these stories and these, like, all of this stuff that came out from this one life, it's really incredible. And it really like hit home this idea that like the gift that we eventually, everybody gives, because we're all heading to the grave at some point.
Right, right.
And the gift that the deceased gives is that final like coming together of such a, like, I saw people there that I never that I thought I would never see again, or that I hadn't thought about in 20 years, and like, and probably never will see again, you know? But like
Right.
that moment we got to like come together and just be there for a second, and like, wow, like what a thread. This guy was the thread, you know?
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
It's
and
beautiful.
like and so like it just, and we didn't do a traditional funeral, you know, like we had a viewing at the funeral home for people, because we were just like, however you need to grieve, then you get to grieve that way. And so some people need to go and see him off, you know, his body. And some people came, but they didn't go in that room, you know, and some people didn't come at all. But um, we knew that, because based on what he had told us, all he wanted was, you know, like a concert. So we're planning his last show. That's going to be in December, when we were like all heading home anyway for
Oh,
holidays.
Oh, I love that.
So we're just gonna have
so
a
awesome.
big old concert, and sing
Oh,
like sing his songs and all his favorite songs and stuff. So
How rad. That's
yeah,
so
you know, so
cool.
it's just like, it's however everybody has to deal with it, I think should be allowed to, you know, like that's something that, like, it wasn't about me, you know, that whole
Mm,
thing. And I just, and you know, my mom, she's going through it her way. And like, I just said, and sort of realized that if whatever you got to do to grieve, whoever you are, then come on here and do it, and whatever, you know, like, because this guy he was everybody's. He wasn't
mm,
mine, you know?
mhm.
So yeah, it was really powerful, but it just kind of, like, it all just wrapped up so beautifully. And like I was able to just really show up and be the front, be the first hand you know, that was held out to shake, you know, with everybody that came through. And like, I had the strength, not only the strength, but like I had the the peace. I didn't have to
Mm,
like to crumble. I crumbled a couple months ago.
yeah.
Like I already did that. And so it's like, you know, like for you too.
Mhm.
I mean, we're part, as I understand it, we're part of the Dead Dads Club now. So
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah.
we're in a club together.
Totally.
So maybe, you know, send you a text on Father's Day or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, this work that I did, like, and I think it's for everybody, for anybody that, because so much of our, you know, our relating, it ties back to our parents, you know. And
100%. Yeah.
so like, I mean, if there's still a conversation that can be had, like, and little did I know that it was going to be as timely as it was. But like, it just, I mean, I think anybody can have a similar experience and take something very, very deep from it.
Mm.
But the setting's got to be right, you know, the timing, and the people that are around. It needs to be a safe space, um, but it's extremely powerful, and potent when executed properly.
I love that you were able to show up as that compassionate king.
yeah.
That just
Mm.
kept
Yeah.
on coming through as you were talking about how you were able to shake all those hands and be that strong, that you know, that presence of strength, and not strength as in like I'm going to hide my feelings, but just strength as in, you know, I can be open, my heart can be open, I
Empowered.
can
Yeah.
receive, you know, and also give that strength and be that presence. Like
And
you
how
ab
healing for your
yeah,
family.
yeah, like you absolutely, I feel like, embodied that archetype so beautifully.
Well, and I think people can tell if you're like, if you really are that, or if you're just kind of putting that on, you know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, like a
because
front. Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, most people didn't, you know, like, most people just don't know how to act whenever you lose somebody, you know.
Oh,
And
totally. Yes.
we come to this thing that we say, I'm sorry for your loss, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I was always mixed about that because I never really had lost someone. I mean, I had lost people, but never like my father, you know? And so like I received that so many times from so many different people. And realizing that it's not about what you say, it's that you're acknowledging someone's going through something.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. And
Mm-hmm.
so just thank you. Every time somebody said that, I said, thank you. Just thank you. That's all that needed to be said, you know?
Yeah.
You don't have to say anything. You just see that I'm going through something, and that's that.
Yeah.
Yeah, being witnessed is like such a huge part of healing through and like creating a different relationship with your grief, with your traumas, with everything that you're releasing. It's like I think that goes back to also what you were just speaking about earlier about the community of this men that you were going through this healing work with, and why it was so powerful, because there
Mm-hmm.
is something so important in allowing yourself to be witnessed.
Hmm.
Totally.
Yes. I think that's
Totally.
part of the like the probably one of the deepest parts of the actual medicine
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
is like being there and kind of like going through like sobbing in front of a man,
Yeah. Yeah.
sobbing in front of a man that I now like I knew him, but now like I know him, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he knows me. He's seen me in like in a way that my mother hasn't even seen me, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Like I cried when I was a child when I scraped my knee, but like a grown man like that cannot even control his emotions, that is just basically melting onto the earth, like
Mm-hmm.
that's vulnerability, you know. And so
Right.
Totally.
to like experience that and to be seen in that and to be held and like literally held, like that
Mm.
was a part of it. Like we got to be held by that man that just let us just sort of like just just fall apart in his arms,
Mm.
you know. It's
Mm-hmm.
so intensely powerful. And so yeah, just being able to like show up and like really, and I little behind the scenes for the listeners, like I had told them there's some stuff that went down recently. Do we want to talk about it or not talk about it?
I
We just
mean,
dropped it. We just dropped it.
I feel like this was
So
literally,
powerful.
yeah, meant to be. And I'm
Yeah.
just even looking, like we're recording this on Wednesday, October 19th, and it's, we're making our way slowly towards Samhain and Halloween and all these, these holidays, or these this time of year where the veil is really thin,
Yeah.
and I keep on thinking, I've met more people whose loved ones have passed in this window of October and
Mm.
November than otherwise. And I've made a little, silent mental note to myself, like, there's something about this time that feels very potent to acknowledge our grief, acknowledge those that don't walk with us in these bodies anymore, but are
Are
still
so with
so
us.
very much with us. Yeah. And I feel my dad constantly, there's been this like crazy windstorm up here in Idlewild like the past day or so. And every time the wind comes through, and it sometimes comes through during my morning ritual of acknowledging my ancestors, which includes my dad now, and I'll get an acknowledgement from the wind, like, we're here with you,
Wow.
I
And
love that.
yesterday it was just going wild to the point where I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if our house is going to stand. but like, but I just felt them, I felt their presence, and I just felt like I am safe here, and I am safe here because I know I can feel them around me. I can feel, just even them sitting here with us in this podcast, like I feel like your
Right.
dad's here 100%. And that this was a conversation that needed to be had like right now. I'm just like, I'm just so blown away. Again, the
The
divine timing
timing.
thing,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's like that's you know this was set to be a completely different conversation 2 weeks ago when we had our
right?
first
Hmm.
like chat, like, oh, here's some things that we could talk about. And it was always going to go down this road with this
Mm-hmm.
work. I just didn't even have the proof in the pudding yet, you know?
Yeah.
And for
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
now it's like, no,
Wow.
this is so real because I just was able to like to deal with
Experience
one of
it.
the biggest, you know, transitions in my life
Yeah.
as the king, the compassionate king, that
Yes.
like these people that didn't really have that experience, even people that like were nowhere near as quote unquote close to him as I was, um, there were people that just they were having their little fall apart, you know,
Mm.
and I could be there for them. It was so wild because like this is one of the most powerful things that happened. Because my so he poor guy didn't get any grandkids. I'm a late bloomer. I didn't get married
Same.
until I was
Same.
till like, you know, I was 40. But you know, like so my all my cousins had like hundreds of kids. And so he basically had grandchildren. They just weren't his, you know, blood, but
Mm.
um they so like one of my cousins had, you know, had three girls and like they, you know, he was basically their grandfather, you
Oh.
know. And so like and one of them, the oldest, like was so close to him. He like wrote her a song, you know, like
Hmm.
she just had like such a special relationship with him. And like I I came to her and like this was the this probably broke my heart the most. It's like witnessing
Mm.
her grief, you know,
Mm.
because she's probably like 8 or 9 years old, you know, like and I just like it occurred to me that like oh my god, like I'm sorry for your loss,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
like how to be able to show up and hold this child and be like I'm sorry that this happened to you, like this is not just mine, like this is
Hmm.
yours too.
Yeah.
And like and she's in such a vulnerable time in her life where like you know like that was just it was just extremely difficult. And like so like witnessing her and like even seeing his you know his dogs, like I
Mm.
saw the
Hmm.
grief in his dog's eyes, you know, where they're like what's going on here, like where is he, you know.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I just like you know like looked those dogs in the eyes and just pet them and just like was with them, you know, as much as I
Mm.
could be in
Mhm.
those moments. But like seeing the loss instead of feeling it and saying no this is mine and just like being so wrapped up in
Absorbing
it.
it all. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
just
Right.
being able to like help heal other people's grief like by showing up and being that having
Just
that strength because
holding that
and not
space.
like
Yeah.
not like again like not putting it out there but just being it and like not even
Yeah.
really realizing it, just showing up and like with what I was equipped and and it just happened that way,
Yeah.
but
I mean,
extremely
that's why we
powerful.
do the work, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
Which
yes.
is so powerful. Like this, yeah, to Ellen's point, like this conversation could not have been planned more
Hmm.
precisely by
Yeah,
the
right?
universe.
Yeah.
It gives me chills when you said it. Like I feel
Totally.
it. There's my old man right there.
Totally.
Back of
I
my
mean,
spine.
I know, I'm getting the chills too. And I just have to say too, like, and acknowledge as you're talking about your, I guess it'd be your second cousin, but kind of like your niece in a sense,
Hmm.
and also your dad's pups and like, I mean, what I'm witnessing and you talking about them is the connection that you have with each of them through this grief,
Yeah.
and how
Mm.
beautiful that is. Like to be able to connect to somebody through it's like sadness and yet also sweetness,
Yeah.
Hmm.
of
Yes.
this person's life and how he's touched all of you guys in different ways. But it's, yeah. I always like to think of grief as this like it's a changing of form,
Yeah.
kind of like the way an ice cube melts into liquid and then like dissolves into gas or whatever.
Mm.
Like I just see grief as like the expression or the experience of something changing form from one thing into the next, and us having to let go of our perceive or our perceptions of what that first form was and receive what that next form is, you know?
Yeah.
And that relationship continues, but it's different now, you know?
Mhm.
But you can absolutely be with him and walk with him and access him through meditation and prayer and just through nature. It's like literally through being outside and being with the land, and it's just beautiful in that way. We always love to ask this one last question of all of our guests, but you've gone through so much since 2016 and so much in the last, couple of weeks. What would be your one piece of advice or wisdom that you would want to pass on? I guess more specifically for men, but really for all of us.
I would say get curious. Get curious about yourself and like what's working and what's not, and know that there's some way to make something that's not working work. But until you like recognize it and acknowledge it, then there's no way, right? Like
Right.
if I just feel bad. Well, why? What feels bad? Do you feel bad? Does your back hurt, or does your heart hurt, or is it both? Like so. But acknowledging it, so much of what we need is available to us. We just don't know maybe what we need or how to get it, right? And so I would just say that like I just kept following a thread. Like for me, luckily, I met some cool guys that were doing really cool work, and I just kept saying yes. And Lord knows I've said yes to too many things in my life too, and have have sort of like tapped my resources too thin as well. But I would say that like if we just get real about our situation, where it's at and where we want it to go, then there's always a chance to make that happen. But it's hard to see it, it really is. It's hard to say, oh, well, how do I feel? I don't know. Like that's such a loaded question. Like, and we're so distracted. We're so, stimulated and inundated and all of this stuff. But just the very acknowledgement that, okay, and for me, it was this, when I went on this retreat, it was like, something's got to give here. Like I cannot keep operating this way because it's not working in my life. I don't know what I need to do, but this feels right, so I'm going to do it, right? Like this came into my life, so I'm going to do it. Like I do think if we ask, if we start with just whatever it is that you see out there, whether it's, the universe or God or whatever it is, like, and some people call this prayer, some people call it meditation, some people call it whatever, but you can actually just ask, what is it? What is it that I need to see? What is it that I need to feel? What is it that I need to experience? Because this isn't working for me. And if that curiosity can be answered in many ways when you're paying attention. But if you don't even ask or implore that that's something that you need in your life, then the answer won't come.
Right.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with
Oh,
us.
thanks for having me. This is just another little extra bonus of my healing.
Ours too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, we
Yeah.
could never have expected this
Right?
conversation to go this direction, but I'm so grateful that you're here and that you've shared this experience with us. And like, thank you so much for your
Yeah.
vulnerability and for your just openness to talk about it and to be witnessed.
Such a pleasure. And thank you for holding such beautiful space for people to tell their stories and to feel worthy of telling their stories.
Yeah. Definitely just feeling super grateful. Yeah. Super grateful. And I'm definitely going to be texting you on Father's Day.
Let's go. Let's go.
TJ, tell us where people can find some of your music and learn more about you.
Well, you can just start your search by putting my name in there, TJ Moss. That kind of goes way back to my early days. Then that went into TJ Moss Band, which is some of my not so early days. And then, but my name, TJ Moss Band. I was in a band called the Yes Team, which we had a nice run there for a while, and then a band called Mojo Jackson. And now I'm just kind of doing my solo thing. I'm actually doing really, really powerful work with my wife in our home studio. And my wife is Laura Rose, and she has a program called the Vocal Sanctuary. And that's a whole other podcast in itself. But we've been doing healing vocal trauma through a creative experience, and like bringing people into the studio to have an extremely just a rounded, holistic, creative experience, and like people that maybe have never written a song or never sung into a microphone, and we just encourage, and we help, and we foster people's relationship with their voice. And that's such a powerful practice, because so much of our trauma is tied with our voices and your ability to express yourself.
Yeah.
And so we're really helping to release some of that trauma in people, and in the meantime creating really cool projects. So Nile Street Studios. I'll probably before too long I'll have a website, nilestreetstudios.com. So that's definitely on the list. But my dad just died, so I don't know how long.
Yeah.
I don't know how long I can use that excuse. But Nile Street Studios. We are going to. We're definitely going to keep doing this work, and so if anybody's interested, they can just reach out to me at tjmoss@gmail, and say hi. And yeah, we're doing really powerful work, and it doesn't have to be. We are based in San Diego, but we've done things remotely as well. There's so many options for all of that, and so we're just kind of doing a little bit of this and a lot of that. But finally, the final thing that I would say to check out would be Rose and the Water, which is my wife and our music project that we just released a 4-song EP called Day Night, and that's Rose and the Water.
Beautiful. Thank you
so much.
Thank you so much, ladies. I really, really appreciate this, and it's just it's been a pleasure, and I'm really glad we kind of like got to experience that whole story in real time at the same time.
Same.